Hello everybody all around the world. In June 2024, the RDA board held an event at the ALA annual conference in San Diego. The aim was to provide an overview of the RDA board's activities with a focus on internationalization. This presentation has been slightly updated and reflects the status as of February 2025. My name is Renate Behrens. I'm the current chair of the RDA steering committee. I come from Germany and was the European representative on the RDA steering committee for many years. As the first non-Anglophone chair of the RSC, I'm consciously committed to the internationalization of the standard and the diversity of languages and scripts and the needs of the various user communities all around the world. Can a standard really be international? Every user community has its own needs, and this can never be united in one set of rules. That is why a truly international standard cannot be a fixed set of rules with precise regulations. Rather, such a standard must be very flexible and allow for many options. These requirements have posed major challenges for the development of RDA in recent years and have necessitated a consistent rethink. Furthermore, it is important to realize that this is an ongoing process that will always present new challenges. So, if we assume that we have very different requirements for an international standard, the question arises as to how it can all fit together. The challenge is not only the different needs of the user communities, but also the different organizational forms and cultural differences that need to be taken into account. For example, in Africa or Asia, we will have to take other cultural conditions into account as in Europe. In the archive or museum section, we have to work with completely different forms of organization. In addition, many user communities already have their own well-functioning standards, for example, in the archive sector, and this has to be taken into account. The goal can only be achieved if the different standards are compatible with each other. In the area of metadata standards, we have a very good starting point, which I have presented here, or try to present it here on this slide, in a hierarchy. With the IFLA's international cataloging principles, which are put on top here, we have a very general principles for recording metadata. Building on this, the IFLA also developed the library reference model, which all current standards have since followed. In our case, RDA was revised in a project lasting several years in order to be fully compatible with the LM. There are no contradictions to the LM. In addition, numerous application profiles have been created in the last years that are compatible with the RDA and therefore automatically follow the LRM and the ICP due to the hierarchy shown here. If this hierarchy is followed consistently, compatibility with the basic models is guaranteed, and at the same time, the needs of user communities are met. So, it is obvious that different standards are needed. May these be for different communities or target groups. We discussed a lot about this in the recent years, and it has become completely clear that this is not a problem if standards are compatible. And the compatibility, as shown in the last slide, can be guaranteed if all standards follow the same models or principles. But there's important and very much important that the bodies or institutions or committees responsible for the standard must cooperate. RDA goes international. The first step at this point was the decision to have an international standard, and that's why the ASCR2 became RDA. And at the same time, the bodies responsible for the new RDA gave global communities the opportunity to participate. And the most important step, I think, was the so-called 3R project, running over several years, and this was a milestone as the basis for real internationalizations. The RSC set up several working groups. This is a very important milestone and step towards internationalization. Then the RSC and the RDA board supports manuals or community-driven application profiles. In the toolkit itself, we started to provide a section called Community Resources, where communities can put in requirements for their specific community. And the RSC are having official protocols with other standardizing bodies. Let's talk about the working groups. I show you here on this slide the working groups we set up in the last years. The more gray ones, these are task and finish working groups, which had a certain topics, certain terms of reference, and a certain terms of work. They are done for the time being. What actually our working groups, these are the religions in RDA. This is a very important working group. You can imagine true internationality in the topic of religions worldwide will never be reached in full, but we try to give our best, and this is possible because, and that's for all working groups, that they are internationally staffed. We have expertise and colleagues from all around the world working in these working groups, and if some of you is interested in the RSC working groups, please call out and we will see if you would or could participate in some of the working groups. We have an extent working group running this year. It's a task and finish working group, and we have several discussion papers and we have proposals on this topic. You all can see this and can inform yourself on the RSC websites. The newer working groups we are having for the time being is a joint working group between the RDA board and the RSC about artificial intelligence. And the youngest working group we are having, we just set it up at the beginning of this year, is a working group for archives. So stay tuned, have a look at the RSC web pages, and you will be informed about all the news the working groups are doing and having and the results they are getting. Community resources. This is a new step, and I think it's a very important step to have it in the toolkit itself. Here, the RSC, we would like to give the user communities, and these may be language communities like German-speaking communities, Spanish-speaking communities, or thematic communities like the music community. We would like to give them the opportunity to contribute their own application profiles or regulations. And you may imagine that these can be very different documents, and they will be available in many languages. And that's why these will not be official RDA texts, because if you think about the lot of languages and scripts we will have in the future, the RSC will not be able to have a look at these all and to understand them. itself. So this is not only a place where documents or regulations can be placed, it's a place as well for communication. For example, the music community is very internationally staffed and set up, and so there can be an exchange about the documents different communities or organizations put into these community resources, and perhaps at the end of the day they will find common solutions, which helps all of us to make RDA more international. Last but not least, we are having official protocols, because as I mentioned before, it's so much important for real internationalization and for compatibility of standards that the bodies or the committees behind the standards talk to each other and exchange their ideas. So what are we having for the time being? The RSC and the IFLA Committee on Standards, where all the standards IFLA is providing are coming together, signed an official protocol in August 2023 to regulate the cooperation. Then we are having further protocols with the ISSN International Center, for example, and the Mark Advisory Committee. And a new protocol will be finished, I think will be finalized this year with the BibFrame community. We are actually preparing it to be signed from both sides. What are the to-dos for the near future? We have to go ahead with our goal to approach real internationalization. You may imagine that this will take a long time and perhaps we will never reach it in full, but we will do our best to get the RDA, the standard RDA, as international as it is possible. We have to look for cooperation with other standardization bodies for the now several times mentioned compatibility. We will give, or we are doing this and we will continue to do this, to support community-based application profiles, and we will broadening the focus on cultural heritage. The first start doing this was the setup of the archives working group, but we will look out for further communities like the museums community. So what's the conclusion of all this? There is no one size fits all. The only way to be really international is cooperation and participation. So I thank you very much for your attention. Everything is documented on the RSC's website and on the board's websites and in the toolkit itself, and we have several news sections, so please go there, inform yourself, and I can say it from all members of the RSC, all members of the RDA board, we will be happy to have your comments or questions. Thank you very much.